With broken hearts, we celebrate the life of our longtime collaborator, inspirator, friend, and family member, Hattie Hathaway, aka Brian Butterick. A founder of the Pyramid Club and member of the seminal Three Teens Kill Four, Hattie joined our creative cabal, the Jackie Factory, during the early and formative years of our 90s weekly, Jackie 60. There she became a beloved performer, co-producer, and one of the Jackie MCs. When we bought Jackie 60's home venue on West 14th Street, a stream of historic mothers in a dream of Hattie's gave us the Utopian Club's name. At Mother, Hattie became a manager, producer, and mentor to several generations of drag, trans, and gender-hacking performers. Hattie's many other contributions to queer club culture could and will fill volumes, and the outpouring of tributes on her passing is a testament to the thousands of lives that she touched, inspired, and changed. Today you'll hear from some of her nearest and dearest, and a public memorial will be held in New York City on April 1st. But first, Hattie, in her own words, from the virtual community, the Motherboards, circa 2001 to 2007. The Gilded Grape? You just slammed me with a bunch of memories of a gay New York that no longer exists. Bars and floors and stages that harken back to a mysterious, verboten subculture that truly was the twilight world of the homosexual. Always one of my fave phrases, of course. I can remember waking up each day hungry to experience a different aspect of it. Would it be the outdoor cruising at the Soldiers and Sailors Monument? The minuscule dance floor at the Barefoot Boy? The stand and stare at Boot Hill? The barracks baths on 42nd Street, the Gaiety? Or the Gilded Grape, the international stud in the Village, the trucks, the piers? Tonight, New York had an amazing menu to choose from, all of which was very obviously left over from the great influx of homosexuals to this town during the war. There was always the feeling that the sticky floor under your feet had not been cleaned since the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. It was, dare I say, romantic, dangerous, and very, very secret. And there was a lot of it, much more than there is now. Towards the sordid end of Club 57, before someone embezzled the rent money, there was a year-end art show. Your please had to be something about your New Year's resolution. For mine, I got every empty bag of heroin I could find. On the street, in the club, in my own and friends' apartments, not hard to do. And pasted them on a canvas along with notepaper on which I had written 100 times, "I will never do heroin again." That was the hard part. Writing it, that is. Along with all that, I glued a brand new syringe to it. The syringe was stolen at the opening, figures. When I lived in San Francisco, the hottest celeb guest to have at your party was the mayor, which wasn't hard to do. At that time, he was Mayor Aliato, with whom I shared a lawyer, so it wouldn't have been hard at all. I remember thinking, but why would I ever want to? Who wants a mayor at your party? This one's so silly, but it's so Hattie's sense of humor we had to get my little dose of Craigslist tonight. Bald-headed transvestite humper wanted. Thank you, Hattie, for even giving us the chuckles. I'm looking for a wig-wearing guy. I'll just try it once more and then we'll move on. I'm looking for long-hairing guy from Belport Village who likes non-passable transvestites and tells people he is married when he is actually very gay. You get the point. He goes on. And to close this little opening, an historical note. In our culture, it seems to be of paramount importance who was the first, when in reality, any ideas we might have are the result of a barrage of influences we receive from the cradle onward. You know you weren't the first bald drag queen, Dean, said Constance in the mid-90s. Likewise, the first boy dancers on the bar in jockey shorts were Greg W., a Wall Streeter by day and Sister Dimension at the Pyramid. This was in 1981, before Dean Johnson came here from the wilds of Maine. However, whether or not Dean had ever seen Constance or those very first Pyramid bar dancers, or even knew about them, he took both concepts to the nth degree and made them his very own. This is what makes a legend a legend. Thank you all for coming. We have 10 speakers tonight, so we're going to get through it. Well, 9 now. And we welcome dear, dear friend of Hattie's, collaborator and cultural icon, Happy Face.
Thank you, Chi-Chi. Such an honor to get the hot mic right off of your hand. Thank you. And I've had Heather set her phone for 5 minutes because I'm unprepared, which never stopped me before, me or Hattie. Hattie was the type of showbiz partner who could go on stage completely unprepared and somehow tear the house down. It's just amazing. But it wasn't always that way with us. And I remember one day saying to Hattie, Brian, well, at the time, okay, Brian, when I met Brian was this LA punk that from the Pyramid, you know, with a mohawk. I didn't know that he was from Bronx and a graduate of the Bronx High School of Science, a subject which I'm going to sit down while I talk, you know, you know, that we, whatever, so many things in common, but I remember saying to Brian, Hattie, Brian, Loretta, who's, I knew as Loretta originally. Apparently I came up with the last name Hathaway. I just recently, the memory is going, so sometimes I appreciate seeing things in print. Anyway, I mean, if you're going to cast Nancy Culp in your show, you know, someone to play Nancy Culp, who are you going to call? Hathaway. So anyway, no, but Loretta. She was Loretta because she was our producer. You came up with an idea that was crazy, totally nuts, cost, you know, overruns for, you know, our $120 budgets. You know, we went to Hattie and Hattie said, love it, and we did it. You know, we made it happen. And that was an amazing thing about Hattie. I remember doing some productions with Hattie, being in Kostudis's things where I met or got to know Edgar and a lot of other performers, and just like troopers, just going on playing 15, 30 parts in one night, new script every week, and that was Hattie, that was happening Hattie, that was just, you know, we just made things happen. I remember one time saying, Hattie, you know, I want to be your friend. She said, well, you are my friend, I want to be your really good friend. She said, okay, you are. I was expecting some ceremony or something, you know, bloodletting or something, and Hattie just was, you know, I mean, and that's how it was with Hattie. It was really kind of a miracle, amazing rapport we had on stage, but it wasn't always easy. It took some time getting to know each other and doing little like side day trips. We should go off to like City Island or some odd place in New York where we just go, because we were both kids from the city, you know, and that's, you know, I later, you know, would tell her, oh, I found this place up in the Bronx and there's these statues and it's like this, you know, Greek thing. Oh, that's whatever that is, the Bronx. I grew We went to the Bronx Botanical Garden, and we had to keep going out to smoke, of course, but she told me all kinds of stories of like, that's where they would break into when she lived up in the Bronx to do bad stuff in the park, you know. But Hattie and I had to go. We wanted to go on this tour with this ragtag old theater company called the Hot Peaches to go to Europe. So we were there, and many people, come from that school, International Crisis. And this was our turn, our generation's turn to go on the tour. And we had to get passports. And of course we were underground economy workers, and we had nothing, no papers or anything. So we went to the passport office, uptown, midtown, whatever, it's past 14th Street, it's uptown. And we went up there one afternoon, and I vouched for Brian Butterick's identity, who I thought we knew each other well at that point. So they asked you questions much like you would do at your marriage, your green card marriage day. Not quite up to what side the toothbrush is on, but how many brothers or siblings? Well, I knew about one brother who was still alive. I didn't know there was one that I got every question wrong. I got all my questions wrong. 4 out of 5. To the 5th one. With the woman, with the glasses on the chain, real chewing New York civil servant that actually federal, but we love. We played often we emulated that character. We loved to play nurses, nuns, and I forget the other flat shoe drag character, but librarians. We were always very quick to play those roles. Anyway, I'm just vamping people. I'm just going because this is really just coming from the heart, and I would tell you that I vouched for Brian's identity for the passport office, but the question was, so does he, talking about me, does he have any pets? And I was 5 minutes ago, and Hattie goes, and she goes, well, he has a goldfish. He calls that a pet. And I said, here's my question. Here's my answer to that question. So do you have any pets? And he goes, well, he would say, he has a goldfish. He calls that a pet. And check, stamp. And we were in Italy, and my great excitement. So, all of you have been calling me Hattie for the last few weeks. I love that. I'm so happy that my identity is melded with our dear Hatties, that you give me the honor to call me Hattie, because your memories are as good as mine. I love you, each and every one.
Happy doing it in that way that only Happy can.
Where are you from, Happy?
I live in Massachusetts now. These are my normal parents. I'm joking.
And now representing the Butterick family, Hattie's wonderful cousin, George Butterick.
Which makes this hard, and I'm not a speaker. But I know that all of you were his family, just like I am. And the answer you really proud of me said to me. Somebody needs to turn the lights off so I can actually do this. So I wrote about a 10-minute speech, and then shoot you some of the minutes at 5 minutes. Speak into the mic. Okay, I know this is not the reunion any of you had hoped for, but despite the circumstances, it's a great privilege to be here in your company. When Jane asked me to prepare this speech, I hesitated. My first thought was that surely there's someone out there better suited for the job, like Happy there. Yeah, good. Yeah. After all, I've seen so many of you adeptly step up to the mic with outstanding amounts of flamboyance and flair. One of the things I learned from Brian is that speeches often go better with high heels, a wig, cocktail in hand. I hope you don't expect that from me. In the end, what brought me up here was that there was a nagging notion that Brian would have given me the same encouragement he gave everyone else. Well, almost. I can't remember how many times I saw him zip up somebody's dress and stuff them onto the stage, and that's not me, sorry. Brian had a natural knack for encouraging, inciting, and inspiring people. He was sharp, acerbic, and quick-witted. He was quick to voice his perceptions. He did so with intellect and a great, endless depth of wisdom. His actions were driven by his kind and compassionate nature. He was a believer of humanity, and he marveled at the plethora of quirks and the imperfections of humankind. Through theater and theatrics, he reveled in and revealed the parody of life. He could laugh at himself. He laughed with others. He was a trickster and your sister. He wore dresses. She won't be forgotten. And the tradition here will turn. So many years back, I had the honor, and it was an honor, to work at the Pyramid Club. The details were fuzzy about how I got there. Let's just say I knew a guy. Even after he moved on from standing at the door of the Pyramid Club, Brian kept opening the doors for many. I'm glad I was able to get in on the guest list. I think Brian saw the Pyramid Club like he did his life and the streets around him as a melting pot of cultural creativity and a great sandbox, an experiment in which to expand the bounds and cut the bonds of humanity. Brian had a great vision for the world, and it wasn't just his vision, it was shared as an acid test, mostly without the acid. Mostly. He was an adept tour guide and a teacher. He loved people, and he loved his city. It doesn't surprise me that Brian was well-versed in his ability to express himself creatively. He was inescapably immersed in a city full of concepts and culture and dreams. He spread his arcane knowledge of the streets, of the city above and beneath. His story was your story, my story, her story, and now New York's story. He was at many times many things to many people. A mohawked monk, the third teen, fourth wise man, and always one heck of a queen. But he was uniquely our Brian, and he was the only one. Brian gave us all a unique gift. He allowed us to be ourselves, and he encouraged it. Within our insight of memory, we hold Brian's legacy. His story was and will be the story of his life. It wasn't his alone. We feel the impact of his presence and of his loss. We can remember Hattie by taking up a torch, pen, guitar, lute, nose flute, paintbrush, pantsuit, and storm the stage. Whether Brian struck the match or handed it off to someone else isn't important. Somehow, the fire is. How we fan those flames, how we grieve, doesn't matter. We all know the fire in the belly needs to keep burning. In Brian's laissez-faire way, he inspired people to discover their creativity. He gave them a place on the stage. He knew just how to bring out the greatness in others, often dodging the spotlight, only to find himself surrounded in the lights of the stars. Although very few people could shake a can of beans like him, I don't see Brian as being a mover or a shaker. He was the catalyst that shook the shakers. He motivated people to do their thing, and I think he enjoyed watching the view from the sidelines, downstage, upstaged, or looking upskirt. He enjoyed the view. What a spectacle. He was naturally curious and incurably romantic. He knew how to love. Over time, unarmed with passion, he became not only a seeker, but a teacher to be seen by the world as a bastion of lower Manhattan and a guru of the gay. He took it in stride, but not without pride. As more time passed, he became a survivor, left to scratch words on forgotten graves and scatter ashes and crashing waves. Now, after 4 decades of leaving the rubber from his shoes on the city streets, he's gone and has passed the baton. Much of his legacy grew from adhering to his beliefs and a steadfast persistence, all the while following his bliss. In his time with humanity, he had a voice, cackling at times, crackling at others, but a voice nonetheless. He was both astute and acute, with a sensibility that never seemed to fail. He struck me as being a gentle old soul, filled to the top with a bottomless reserve of wisdom and depth. From his vast font of knowledge, he was always willing to share. Brian expressed his philosophy through spontaneity and ad-lib action. His life was marked by moments of conspiracy with friends in a dynamic dance that was sometimes more burly than burlesque, sometimes an eloquent prance. He lived in a world of movement and madness that often went unmarked as the curtain for the next act rose. He embodied his role as Hattie Hathaway, often accompanied by her sharp, grandmotherly cynicism. It came to him all too easily, providing the necessary balance between the wildness of the moment. Even while going off the rails, Hattie had a way of keeping things on track. She was the voice of sanity, a crotchety old sage on the stage to rival the likes of Emily Post. In a world less dramatic, she'd have contentedly chirped endless annoyances at like some cricket of conscience in Anders' ear. But as a performer, she knew the show must go on. He loved being a hag, coolly guiding the circus with sophisticated ease. More often than not, he took on the guise of grandmotherly hen and ringleader too. And she may even have cracked a whip, but I don't really want to know. I was fortunate enough to have known him in many different ways over the years. Yet the Brian Bowrick I loved was your Brian too. As his nephew, this life of his seemed to spring out of a fairy tale, and somehow I never found it odd that he was always the queen. As I've told many of you, this is a loss we're only beginning to understand, to come to terms with. With all the amazing memories, it's been difficult to stop the laughter and truly mourn. We haven't found the time to grieve. Brian would want us to celebrate. He wants us to all go out and be the amazing wonders that we are. He would shrug it off with an affected wave and say, "Go do something beautiful," much like a mother would tell her kids to go out and play. He found a place in our hearts, and he's always there, a perennial fixture that symbolizes and encourages whatever freedoms we discover within ourselves. Brian's antics shone a light within, sometimes with wit, sometimes through sarcasm, but always with wisdom and the gawky, awkward grace reserved for a drag queen. In the Butterick family, it was a special thing to have a queen in the closet, or out of the closet as well. He was your queen. Brian knew you didn't need a queen. He knew that all you needed were the people around you, and a spark, and maybe something to burn. Some people come out, some people go out. This time, Brian went all out. This was your sister, your lover, your childless but not virgin mother. So hats off to Hattie.
Thank you so much for taking the time, my dear. Oh, that's undignified. No, you're an artist right now. You don't have to do that for this minute. And now, 2 of the members of 3 Teens Kill 4 will introduce themselves.
Good evening. So, what was I Recently, we got a request as a band Business Film 4 to have our music be used for a student film, and we asked to see the footage of the film, of the trailer that they wanted to use it for, and Brian sent this like 2 or 3 sentences reply and said, as far as that piece of dribble, that kid wants to use our music for, my answer is a resounding no. It is a dreadful piece of shit. And what I love about that is that Brian could just like say that and like not get bent out of shape, whereas I would be like, this guy is such an asshole. How is he such an idiot? Why do you even ask us? And Brian would just be like, you know, it's just a piece of shit. Like, who cares? How are we doing on the guitar? How are we doing on my microphone?
Uh-oh.
Right there.
That's it. Here.
There we go. So Doug is going to explain why we're doing this particular song.
This is a song by a band called Destructo. They were a pyramid band with Carol Black, Rick Aller, and one of the Braun twins. I can't remember whether it was Josh.
We're not sure.
Right. So this was the song. Well, Carol was a good friend of Brian's, and this is a song called Alcohol. And yeah.
Hattie, remember those weird like microphone dropouts that we talk about? I'm having one now, so I'm going to do a few steps of minuet in my Titanic dress. And now, one of the only minds as sharp as dear Hattie's. Let's welcome up here Michael Musto.
The last time I saw Hattie was Christmas Day at Jane Friedman's house. And she has this wonderful secret Santa game where everyone brings these incredibly large gift wrapped packages, like, I don't know what they are, washer, dryers, you know, blenders and things. And I just brought a bottle gift wrapped. I put it in the middle of the gifts. When it was Brian's turn, he didn't even notice the big packages, he went right for the bottle. It was absolutely fine, he looked so fucking happy. In 2016, I interviewed Brian, Hattie, and these are his words to me then. When I did the door of the Mud Club, particularly heinous were the Saturday Night Live people, Belushi and the other stars. Oh, and those brothers who went on to open Pastis, the McNutty brothers, Eightful. And there was a lot of Guidage. And actually, I got a gunshot at me from a speeding car from somebody I hadn't let in. That was the Guido factor from New Jersey. The owner, Steve Mass, would call down and say, "There's too many fat people here." But he'd forget what he said, so I would tell people, walk around the block, and when you come back, I'll let you in. I became creative director of Pyramid when Bobby Bradley bottomed out with drug abuse, before all the rest of us did. My drag character, Hattie, was originally Loretta, something that Faye Runway and I had concocted as a country singer. Loretta Nix became plain old Loretta, and then Loretta B. DeMille, as a joke because of all the spectacles we supported. My grandmother's name is Hattie, so one New Year's Eve we made $25,000 profit, charging $10 a head at the Pyramid. I put the money in this suitcase and we labeled it Hattie Butterick, and we hid it under the stage. I came back sober the next day and paid everybody. As I paid them out of this suitcase, you couldn't put it in the bag. It was tax-free. I guess there's a statute of limitations. Anyway, everyone saw Hattie and thought it was the funniest thing on earth. So they said, hello. And they saw the name Hattie and they thought that was the funniest thing on earth. So they started calling me Hattie. And one day, Happy Face called me Hattie Hathaway because Jane Hathaway from the Beverly Hillbillies had just died. I started going to Jackie and was totally enthralled. I said to Pookie, "You have any jobs? I want to get out of here. You know my ADD." He said, "Well, the only thing I have is Dee Finley was the cocktail waiter. She was horrible." "Do you want a cocktail waitress?" I was like, "Sure." Clubs have to have something for you to drop your straw at. Cyberspace has virtually destroyed human interaction, yet I say let them stay glued to their devices. Millennials actually are smart. They value your interaction. They know all the social media. They find out about everything, and they know how to use Wikipedia in the best way possible. They fetishize some of what we did, which is always a good ego boost, and they give me hope. I've had my relationships already in my life. I'm just an old spinster now. I've had 3 important relationships. I think that's more than anyone should have. One of them was David Wojnarowicz, so I have a pretty good track record. The fact that none of these relationships were till death do us part, even with David, doesn't make them any less valuable. These people were genius, beautiful people. And I'm a little difficult too. I think gay marriage is great, but those that don't want to do it, why should they feel inadequate? Many times people will say, "Brian, you're single. I'm gonna fix you up." You're out of your fucking mind. Thank you.
don't think, I'm gonna move this over. To close out Act 1 before we take a 10-minute, much-needed drinking break, and bathroom and smoking outside for those who remember. Before that, we'd like to introduce the person who put all of the slideshows and the closing video together, for him to say a word about that, and for you to thank Aldo Hernandez.
Sent photographs, even though it was all private word of mouth. And a lot of the stuff that you see collected from Brian's Facebook page, I thought that was great because he posted so many photos of his family and friends. And so the other ones I just got by following leads of people's names. A lot of you are in the room, so I hope you don't mind. We decided just to share them without trying to credit 360 photographs. And the other thing I'd like to say is, Brian and me had talked for a long time about him doing a book, a biography, and maybe a book of prose based on his relationship with David, and then just a general biography. And I know he's done a lot of extensive interviews over the years, but this was something, you know, he finally, we talked over this at many bars over the couple years, and finally in December he came over and we had about a 3-hour session, gabbing away a lot of gossip and a lot of good information and history. And then the following time, the first time he'd actually asked me to come to his place because he didn't want to climb up to 4 flights, although his place was identical to mine. It was 4 flights up stairs. But I got there and I interviewed him a second time, and that was January 5th, a week after the first time in December. And then we texted up until the last time was the 22nd of January. I'm letting you know this because in the next few months I'll edit some of it and would like to share it and post some of it. It isn't obviously enough for any sort of book or anything, but I know that he felt really strongly about what we did talk about, especially the 70s and 80s and you know, and a few other things. But he wanted to tell his version of his early relationships and his time here in the city with all of you. So you know my name, so hopefully in the next 2-3 months I'll post something on social media, you know, or something where people can access it. Maybe I'll talk to you in a good spot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aldo. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and these are all those 360 images flashing by. See you at 10. The climactic Act 2 of Hattie, and more Hattie, and some Brian. Welcome back, family, friends, collaborators, lovers, secret haters, secret lovers, crushes, gender hackers, all categories. As we celebrate the Queen. The Queen is dead. Long live the Queen. Hathaway. To start off, our last 5 speakers, and then a short video. First is East Village director, thespian extraordinaire, star of everywhere, teacher, and so much more, Katsukis Nakis.
Thank you, Gigi. I just want to say before I start, you know, Hattie liked to say about, you know, people used to say things like, oh, well, everything ended with Club 57. And, you know, and Hattie hated that. And he always said, you know, it's never, ever the end. And it's the end of something is always the beginning of something else. And I think, there she is. Here we go. So long, Hattie. I wish I could say something spectacular. Brian deserves that, and so does Hattie. There are so many beautiful tributes out there. All I can say right now is that Brian's kindness brought me a long way. He was the sweetest guy to work with back at the old pyramid, and the most steadfast. He was kind to me even when I wasn't so kind to him, and I learned a lot from that. His smile is what sticks most vividly in my mind. I remember that smile back in '83 when he emerged from the pyramid office to relieve my tension with a vodka cranberry and assure me that David Crocker or Ralph Ronchik or Chris Clements really would show up to run tech for whatever grandiose project I had going. He smiled that same smile in 2011 when he and my 6-year-old son first laid eyes on one another and bonded instantly. Brian wasn't perfect. He didn't suffer fools gladly and he hated hypocrisy, but he could forgive a lot too. Once around 1986 or so, I had gotten kind of alienated from the pyramid. It's a long story, but I bitched about the place to the Village Voice, and Cindy Carr quoted me calling the pyramid a tourist trap. Soon after that, I got a call from Brian. Oh shit, I thought. Now he's gonna give me hell. But he said, listen, sweetie, anytime you want to come back over here to the tourist trap and do another show, you just let me know. Hattie loved every kind of person and went out of his way for certain oddballs and ugly ducklings that others would have rejected. Hattie always found her way to the center of the party and was around just about everything amazing in downtown New York over the last 40 years. Through it all, he remained a mentor to the young and a giver of opportunity. It's good to know that when he needed help and support, he got it from some really wonderful people, including that powerhouse Jane Friedman. Brian knew that his stories were important. He spent many weeks with me in Chicago and New York telling stories of the early pyramid, and he was the hardest working, lazy person I've ever met. I can always trust that if we agreed to start at 10 a.m., we would be at work by late afternoon, with cigarette breaks every 10 minutes. But once he got going, damn if he didn't pump out the stories and memories hour after hour, year after year, no matter what his current state of health. Wait, hour after hour, day after day, year after year. No matter what his current state of health. Once he even worked a week-long stretch with me in Chicago with a paralyzed arm and 2 out-of-service hands wrapped in these weird lace-up corsets that looked like they came out of the vault of the Downtown Costume Institute. Brian loved to tell the story of the time he booked a bunch of hardcore skinhead punk bands on the same day as the legendary drag performer Ethel Eichelberger. Fearing trouble, he went down to check the basement dressing room, but found all the skinheads sitting around Ethel in rapt attention. She regaled them with her charms. That was Hattie's utopia. If only Hattie could have run the world. Yeah. See you later, Hattie. We love you.
That was so beautiful. That's beautiful. In one of Hattie's countless incarnations as force for young beauty and talent, Hattie entered into a very fervent 2-year collaboration with the wonderful Black Lips community, a lot of whom are here tonight. And we could fill an entire program with those relationships and those stories, and I'm sure the Black Lips people will in some way later. But to represent all of those great relationships, Lily of the Valley, Michael Cavadias.
first of all, as I, like, the whole time I've been watching this, I see Hattie's picture up there, and I just think those eyes are just so kind, and it just really struck me, like, to think back to being a kid and moving to New York, and like, how welcoming, you know, that was. I moved to New York on August 26th, 1990, with Anoni, who was known as Anthony back then, and we knew each other from California, and so we made plans to meet up that day, and we, you know, Anoni left me like a note on her dorm door saying like, I'll be at such and such place, and I was like, well, what should we do tonight? And Anoni was like, well, there's this place called the Pyramid Club, we should check that out. And I was like, all right, okay, great, let's go there. And so then we went to the Pyramid Club, and I didn't know anything, like, this was all like, you know, we were both 19, and I go in there, and there's all this stuff going on, and then this show starts, and this person gets up there with an orange wig that just like was really matted and went like straight into the ceiling, and this like these really wide eyes, and she was lip syncing Kate Bush's "Wow" and like doing this thing with her hands, and like when she didn't know the words, she would go like this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm home. And I turned to Anoni and I was like, I have to perform here. And I thought this was gonna be my big break. And I didn't have a drag name or anything, and Anoni like was just calling me, like was just like every time we go somewhere she'd be like, come on, Cookie. And so that became my drag name for like 3 months. And before Lily, and so I was too nervous to talk to Hattie, so we went backstage, and I just stood there like a psychopath. And Hattie was like, who are these people? And Anoni said, excuse me, but my friend Cookie would like to perform here. And I was like, and then Hattie goes, fine, we can't pay her, but fine. Because like, I didn't realize it was not that hard. And so then we went, but then for years after that, Hattie would always refer to Anoni as Cookie's manager. And there was just, you know, and then she just like, she took us under her wing. I mean, we were like really weird, awkward, strange people that would like stand in the corner of places and not didn't know how to talk to anybody. And Hattie like sort of brought us into the whole, you know, world, and this, like everything opened up. I mean, if I hadn't met Hattie, I don't know what. Literally everything springs from that moment. And over the years, she just, you know, was always there. Like, I mean, at Jackie, she was the bartender when I would be cocktail waitressing horribly. As Johnny will attest to. And Hattie would kind of, before you guys owned the bar, Hattie would help me out by giving me a free beer here and there to sell. This comforting presence that was, you know, guiding us like she was our, you know, mother figure. And there was another moment that because Floyd posted this, there was a play called Death that Floyd wrote and Hattie played, and I don't remember, my memory's really hazy, but I was Hattie's adopted daughter, and I was all excited to do, I was going to have my big number and I was going to lip sync Kate Bush's This Woman's Work, and I thought, this is, you know, I'm going to steal the show here, and Hattie's going to be my mother and stuff. And I started lip syncing the song, and midway through it, I look over and Hattie was doing the backing vocals. And totally stole the show, like completely, like it was all anybody. If you watch the video, it's just at this like moment where I'm being like all like dramatic and serious and everything. I look over at Hattie and she's like, and I just lost it. I couldn't even like continue on and everything. And it was just this brilliant thing. Like she just always knew these like little, just like how to like just go in there in this little way and just hit you in this place where you know, like where you would all recognize this unspoken weirdness about life and about everything that was going on, and you know, it was just so special. And it was always throughout the years, like whatever she was doing, when you know, she was running the Rapture bookstore, or so many things, like, just really one of the most beautiful and important people in New York culture, and I'm just so grateful to have known him, and all of you, like, you know, this is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop a second, but like, as time goes on and everything like that, you know, I think this is, you know, our family, and even though we don't all see each other very often, but this is where we all come from, and Hattie's like a really, you know, a central part of that, so thank you all so much.
Lily in the Valley, or I'm gonna call you Cookie from now on. And our name for Anthony was Fiona Blue, of course, and still is. And mentioning the family nature of tonight, which really has been wonderful, and we thank everyone for keeping it to be a private thing, was very important. And so is on April Fool's Day, the larger version of this with performances and lots of video and dancing and at La Mama. So it's great that we'll have this to take forward and then that in about a month. So that one you're welcome to tell people about. And we'll have more information soon at the Howl website. So now from one incredible East Village theatrical tribe to another, or several, bringing it all back home, please welcome Augusto Machado.
I'm just an old queen that has no memory anymore. So please bear with me. I want to bow to Hattie Bryan, authentic, no nonsense, talented and smart. And wow, what a person. I was crossing Queen Vic, that bar on 4th Avenue. No, 4th Street and 2nd Avenue. And Hattie was coming out for a cigarette break. And she said, "Ooh, you've been around the block 1,000 times, haven't you? I hope I never look that bad." I know she meant it in a sweet way. And in the raw sunlight in my eyes, she said, "Oh, do you remember way back in the pyramid when I and Stephen Tashin and Mark Fred were chicken, and you and Ethel weren't?" And he said, "We sort of stood by the doorway when you wanted to get up on the bar to dance, and we had a bet who's gonna fall off first." And she meant that in a nice way too. And then she went down, her memory was so good, she went down a list of all the people who worked and performed at the pyramid. And fortunately, I don't remember the names or the comments, but they were short and brief, bitch, and so forth. But also another part, she felt so blessed because of Chi-Chi and Johnny giving her that magic carpet ride to book and do the most fabulous things in the world. And he said, "I couldn't believe they allowed me to put on those kind of shows." And then, of course, at the end here is Jane has been so wonderful. But all of you, all of us have been nourished by him all through these years. And we take within our hearts his spirit and his humor and all the blessed things that he gave us. He was a gift to us. And oh, there's a PS. Now, when my time comes, whenever that is, I'm going to ask Hattie Bryan, I know you're doing pageants up there with all the loved ones who go ahead, but please, can I have a good role? I'll even audition.
guest Machado. So this beautiful beat and so many others from the pictures you're seeing tonight were all created by Hattie's longtime makeup person, dresser, friend, and co-creator, and he's here tonight. Please welcome Torrin.
Just be a Luddite for 2 seconds. Can this go any faster, Hans? It doesn't have to be perfect. It's dark lighting. Right? Oh, that was Hattie all the time. Loved the end product, but could not stand the whole process of the wig and the teasing and the hairspray and the makeup and the lashes. The whole entire thing he was over with in about 20 minutes. It's like, I want it to be perfect. It's like, great, it's gonna be gorgeous. Absolutely not. It's like, that's it, done, it's dark. Keep it moving. So, from the countless ones we did at Jackie 60, from Hillary Clinton to the warm-hearted Mrs. Lovett, it was fun and challenging to create a look because he needed to have it in his own time. He wanted to get on stage. He wanted to show off for all of you. He also had the 10 bar. He had to fix sound equipment, do all these things while he was in drag. And he wanted to go have a drink or 2 or 3 and needed to have a cigarette while he's doing it. Right? So it had to be smoke friendly. So the hair and the face, all that, not good. Yeah, we had a couple of mishaps. Yeah, not good. So, and then once I was fussing over some nature thing, oh man, it's nature, it's gorgeous, I'm gonna make it. He's like, look, here's the deal. This is when I realized I was in the deep end of the pool, right? He said, here's the deal with nature. Nature's not perfect. What makes it great is that it's alive. And that's the point of art, is that we bring that life to it. I was like, oh shit. This is not some fashion thing that we're doing here. This is something about life. This is a life lesson. And that's when I realized our relationship had taken a turn. And this was still in the 90s, so I was still sort of young. Oh, thanks for that. But besides being a collaborator, he was also a great friend. Torn, are you around tonight? Always texting or calling or whatever. There's an event, I have tickets, we have this, wherever. And this could be anywhere in New York, from Joe's Pub to Pangea. Okay, the joke wasn't great. I'm trying to keep this low-key. And the thing is that we would always sync up. So sometimes if you saw Hattie, 6'4", and little short fat me, you wouldn't see that. What would happen is that we went together, but most of you would know that because it's like Hattie's Hattie. And the thing is that Hattie always looked out for me. It was like, let's do this together, because we would always go out to eat afterwards, right? And dish about a lot of you in the room. Which was the fun part, So, and even tonight, for the past couple of weeks, I found myself Hattie, what am I gonna wear to oh, I can't, I guess, yeah. It's sort of rough, but the nice thing is that it was there. It's like, I had that friend that was like, oh, and was always like, what am I gonna wear? What should I do? He's like, don't worry, it's dark lighting. So, what you might not know about me is that I have 2 mentors. I have Hattie and I have Willie Ninja. So, I happen to be really lucky guy. They seem to be very different, but actually they're quite the same. Hattie wasn't a secret fogey. He wasn't dipping and all 6'4", wasn't happening. What it was that he welcomed everybody. So did Willie. Open arms, allowed you. Didn't matter. Creed, money had nothing to do with it. If you could give, pay it forward. And it wasn't about the fame or the money, it was about the passion and the love and the people that we've had many discussions about. Good, bad, ugly, fun, fabulous, and how we can make that better. How can we make our East Village world? How can we make that better? What can we do? How do we make ourselves better? And that's what Hattie and Willie were both about. He knew good food. One of his favorite things was to go eat late night with me, something like this would be it. And Howl, let's go eat it for supper, whatever. So, in November, he asked me for a late night dinner. It was like 3 in the morning. Okay, whatever. And that's when he told me he had cancer. I'm like, all right. Went over the details, blah, blah, blah. I can't fix this, I'm not God, I'm not any higher power. Difficult to handle. And looking back, it was fitting that he had to say goodbye to me over a bowl of matzo ball soup. You know? Which was, you know, great. So from wall fleets at the plaza to our weekly late night coffee clash and our fabulous time at Wigstop, it's been a great experience. So rest in power, Hattie.
Thank you so much, Ted. And we so appreciate having that secret view backstage with Hattie, which I've had, and many of you have had, but it's really a pleasure that I shall miss terribly. Our last speaker tonight, before the video clip, is someone who had so much past, present, and I'm sure in some way future with Hattie, Brian. This is Stephen Tashin, Taboo.
He's got a tape deck in his locker and he listens to the local news. He has more horse sense than I ever heard in any man. He was a cowboy and he knew he lived well. A cowboy's secret would never tell, but there's nothing like the loving of a hard-driving cowboy man. On Saturday night, we'd wander down and everyone would wander, but we'd order up another round as we ride a battle bronc and we listen to the rodeo. On Saturday night, we'd wander down and everybody's moving on the morning time as we ride by the boss. I'd like to hear the whistle below. You ought to take that in and listen to the rodeo. He had more horse sense than I ever eaten any man. He was cowboy and he was looking well. A cowboy's secret would never tell. Well, there's nothing like a living of a hard driving man. I love living in the hard driving cowboy man. Yeah, okay. Now, the thing with Hattie, you don't really have to learn the words. And you didn't really have to have the zipper could be broken or whatever. She had many looks. But my favorite look was about 3 months maybe before she died. Somehow she was walking around with a full head of thick hair. I was a bit jealous. And it was platinum white. And it was sort of late Marilyn Monroe. And I said, she doesn't even just put a little red lipstick on and she can walk around as a transgender woman. She looked gorgeous. But the next time I saw her, she cut her hair. I don't know if it had anything to do with chemo or what, but for a minute there, her hair was gorgeous. I mean, she had really beautiful blonde. It wasn't a triple process, it was her own natural platinum hair. That is a gift of getting old. And speaking of getting old, I can't believe she was only 2 years older than me. I recently turned 60, Hattie was 62. I always thought she was at least 10, 15 years older than me. Because not because she looked older, but because she really had her shit together. Like, when it came to like booking the deal, signing the lease, or getting the cops, or getting the thing, or dealing with the guy who owned the bar, or the thing, it was always Hattie. Like, it wouldn't be a Wigstock if it wasn't for Hattie. And another thing that's weird about Hattie, not weird, but she was weird, yes. But I don't think of her as a solo act. She was always with other people. Like, I think of her sharing the mic with Paul Alexander, or sharing the mic with Happy Face and Happy Backdoor, or doing lots of shows with all the queens of Black Lips, or being on stage as a Wigstock with all the Wigstock people, or even at Howl. She's always in a group. It's always this group community thing. I don't know what sign she was, but somehow it was all about like a lot of people together. And I really, for years I thought, like, for instance, like when that Wigstock movie came out, and I thought, why wasn't Hattie in it? And I thought, well, she never did a solo after Wigstock, I don't think. She was also even in like, with the John Kelly and Justin when they did the Joni Mitchell trio. You know, she was always part of the group. She was a group kind of gal. And when and how did I meet Hattie? Let's bring it back to me. It's all about me. Taboo! I was living in Boston, and I had just graduated from art school, and we learned, and all my teachers were fluxists. I don't know if you know what that is, fluxists. In fact, we had Charlotte Morgan come and take her clothes off and play the violin, and we were like, oh, that's on this and on. So me and my friend had her, and that was after, punk, into new wave, into new romance, and that was no wave, which was a discordant kind of thing with a beat. Anyway, so I was in this band with my friends, and Pat Hearn, and I was a big drunk as a child. Heavens, clutch my pearls. And I said, oh my God, I drink too much. And she said, you need to switch to heroin. That's your problem. You can move to New York City, and you just give them the money, you knock on the door, you go into an old building, they give you the heroin. We were here for 24 hours, and the very first people we met were Ann Craig and Jean-Michel Basquiat, two notorious junkies. And Ann was, and they're like, well, what are you doing in town? Well, we have this no-wave band. And she said, and Ann's like, you need to come to the Pyramid Club, right? I'm hosting the show on Sunday night. You need to book your show. Come to the show. So I get there, and so I just call Bobby Bradley. And so I call Bobby Bradley, and I said, we have the show. And he said, what do you do? I said, well, we tap dance and play loud music, but it's not really music. He goes, great. So when we get there, he thought we were black because we said we tap dance or something. He said, that's not what I was expecting, but you can go on anyway. And needless to say, the place was heroin soaked. That's not for a student, of course. And speaking of the different collaborations, I remember, for instance, when I first got there, that's how I met Brian. He was Brian when I first got there. He was just security. He probably done drag sometime. I forgot everyone does drag. But he was security, and I was sort of shy young boy, standing in the back. And he would be the security. We'd sit there, we'd watch the show, like Tanya Ransom, and we'd sit there and go, and he would say things like, we can do better drag than that. Come on, we can take over this joint. And he did. He really took over the joint. But one of the first things he did was he aligned himself with Tanya, and they would do these shows, which I was thinking, the picture of it is dumping a cold ice bucket water of ice cubes on a bonfire on the beach. It really killed the night. Like it's a pyramid night, and then around 3:30, because this was the deal. Okay, you need more drugs, right? You need more drugs, but you don't have any drugs, but you need to get money. So in order to get money, you have to book the show. So you book the show, you each get the $50, you went to the dealer, and you get the drugs. So you have to come up with a show. And so they did the same fucking show every night for months and months and months. And Tanya would usually sing, "Diver goes down, surrounded by sharks." And then, I think, if my memory correct, you're not the only one without a memory, but I think it was there was a piano, and they would play really like late Nico version. He got a ticket, activated, listens to the and he went on and on and on. And the next time it was the same thing. It was like, we were really onto their tricks. But, and eventually, she took over the club. I mean, it was one of the only times it was really drag queen owned and operated. It wasn't necessarily owned because Richie owned it, but they really owned it. I mean, it was the only time I can remember that a queen was handing me the money. It's usually somebody else. And that's rare. And Hattie was great for that. And I don't think she was a ripoff. She seemed really honest, which is rare in the nightclub world, because she dealt with cutthroats and thieves and charlatans. And she survived, to be 62 years old, which is like dinosaur years. I mean, it came in New York City in this day and age. 62 is old, but you can't tell from me, too. I look gorgeous. I look good. You like me, you hate me, but what do you think? I look good. Whatever that song is, I don't know. Probably got Tina Marie. Anyway, that's enough out of me. Let's get some videos going, and we'll see you on April Fool's Day, right?
That was the very last musical chapter. Well, for a lot of us, the last time we saw Hattie on the stage was at the performance that we're going to close with this clip. of Hattie with 3 Teens Kill 4 at the Whitney. Good night and thanks for coming.
Really